and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Okay, let me get this straight. You have a media platform, and your job is to tell the news or give commentary, analysis, a perspective, and a point of view. Now, I know Heartlands Media, we have our bias too, but I like to think that we give every political perspective and point of view its due respect, a chance to hear the other side out. Now, I do have my biases. That's clear. I've made it abundantly clear where I stand on certain issues, but I'm willing to hear what other people think. All right. Now, I could theorize, maybe give a speculation here and there. But the one thing I expect out of you, my audience, is to always look at other sources, to absorb that information, hear another perspective, and for all of you to come up with your own conclusions. All right. Each of you in your own right has to become an informed citizen, a true citizen journalist, but also a citizen that is involved in the political process in this country. Now, we all know we're burnt out by electoral politics, but hey, that's where citizen ballot initiatives come into play. That's where local elections come into play. And you, as a voter, as a citizen, can be informed to know what your rights are and also what the issues are at hand, and also help inform people and enlighten them. Okay. Now, is this an idealistic perspective of mine? Absolutely. But I expect it from all of you because all of you have shown in my live stream chat how informed all of you are. I've seen your discussions on my Discord page. I've seen all of you share different content creators on Twitter or on Facebook. And that is stuff I like to see because it shows me that people are informing themselves. They're not hiding in their bubbles. They're not hiding in safe spaces. They're actually being active and engaged in the political process. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where corporate media still has sway and control over the people. Now, I like to think, and this is just my perspective, my bias, maybe my idealism, once again, playing into my mindset, my view, that more people are awakening to the fact that corporate media is wanting us to stay divided and to remain afraid. Now, why am I talking like this? Why am I bringing this up? Because recently, on BSDNC, I mean MSNBC, Rachel Maddow decided to have a little epic meltdown. Now, one thing I like to tell my conservative audience, libertarians, Trump supporters, please stop saying people from MSNBC are on the left. These are neoliberal corporatists. They're not leftists. They're not progressives. Please don't associate me with those people. Please don't associate with me with the Democratic establishment. And I'm pretty sure a lot of other progressives and those on the left will say that too. I'm technically right now politically homeless. I'm voting third party. I don't know who I'm going to vote for. You know, I mean, right now, even the third party candidates seem mediocre at best. And it's unimpressive in my book. All right. So I am politically homeless. So the one thing I'll ask conservatives, Trumpers, libertarians, stop it. Please. I ask you kindly, please stop saying that people on MSNBC are leftists. They're not. For the love of God, they're not. Okay. All right. I think I made it very clear. Hell, I told Larry Sharp, I'm politically homeless. I have nobody there. All right. Those are liberals, not to the left of us, please. So anyways, why am I talking about this? Well, let's look at Rachel Maddow's little meltdown. All right. So panic and total meltdown on the left. Radical left-wing commentator. Please stop saying that. Rachel Maddow calls Supreme Court's decision to hear the Trump immunity argument in April BS. All right. So Rachel is kind of going crazy. This will be disturbing to watch. And I'm so sorry I must subject all of you to this viewing. But if you ever want to see anyone suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, this is it on full display. I understand what Trump represents to a lot of people. I get it that you're afraid of Trump. I get that there are people who don't like Trump, but you can't let this man live rent-free in your freaking head.
Is really presidential immunity an open question? Because what's the most famous pardon in American history? Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon once he had resigned and was a former president. Why did Gerald Ford pardon Richard Nixon? Quote, as a result of certain acts or omissions occurring before his resignation as president, meaning as a result of stuff he did while president, quote, Richard Nixon has become liable to possible indictment and trial. Right. Whether or not he shall be so prosecuted depends on findings of the appropriate grand jury and the discretion of the authorized prosecutor. So the idea that this is an open question, that it might be that a former president can never be tried for something that he did because he was president when he did it, is disproven by a plain reading of American history and the whole justification for Richard Nixon being pardoned in the first place. So the idea that this has to be taken up is them saying the sky is green.
Whether you like Trump, support him, or hate him, or just want to ignore him, he's still a citizen of the United States, and he has every right, like every other person, to have their due in court. I want to pull up this article here. It's from RT, just to trigger the libs. Supreme Court to review Trump's immunity. So the United States Supreme Court has agreed to hear arguments on whether ex-President Donald Trump should enjoy legal immunity in his federal election interference case, putting the trial on hold until justices hand down a ruling. The court announced a decision on Wednesday saying it would review whether Trump can face charges for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. The former commander-in-chief has insisted he's protected by presidential immunity, a claim rejected by federal prosecutors. Trump hailed the move in social media posts, saying he was extremely grateful. Without presidential immunity, a president will not be able to properly function or make decisions in the best interest of the United States of America. Presidents will always be concerned and even paralyzed by the prospect of wrongful prosecution and retaliation after they leave office. This could actually lead to the extortion and blackmail of a president. This will probably be one of the most interesting aspects of this election cycle, and seeing how the Supreme Court will rule on this. While Trump has asked the justices to pause his trial as immunity claims were heard by a lower appeals court, they opted to take up the question themselves at the request of special counsel Jack Smith, who brought the election meddling case. Smith has urged justices to speed up the proceeding in an effort to reach a final ruling before the 2024 presidential election race, in which Trump is the Republican frontrunner. He already won the state of Michigan. Maybe that explains why Nikki Haley's still in. She thinks he still has a shot. Setting an expedited schedule, the court will hear oral arguments starting on April 22nd, long after 15 states and one U.S. territory will head to the polls for Super Tuesday. A decision is expected sometime in June, according to The Hill. Should the court rule against Trump, Smith's case would be allowed to proceed following months of delays, while a favorable decision would preclude Trump's prosecution due to legal protections offered to U.S. presidents under certain conditions. The case marks the first time the nation's highest court has decided on whether an ex-president should be immune from illegal acts allegedly committed while still in office. Trump, likewise, is the first former commander-in-chief in U.S. history to face criminal charges after leaving the White House. Jesus Christ. Trump was always going to court. He's always going to court for a lot of BS reasons. I don't know. I mean, look, let's be clear here. However you feel about Trump, these court cases that the liberals and, of course, anyone who's against Trump, they're using it as a way so they don't have to debate him or they have to face off against him. If you want to defeat Trump, debate him. Have a strong person. But, oh, wait, the Democrats never did that. The Democrats were never prepared in 2016. The Democrats got lucky in 2020 because they were using Trump derangement syndrome. And now the Democrats are seeing firsthand, as Biden and Kamala are, again, have low approval ratings, how Trump is superseding them. And the only way they can stop him is by hitting him with all these court cases. I'm just going to give this warning again to liberals. If he walks away from this successfully, he'll become far more stronger than you realize. Now, you could have avoided this if, Democrats actually followed through with progressive policies and promises. If you actually, had a strong contender to face off against him and debate him. But no. So then you have other meltdowns like this, where Rachel, once again, goes a little bit crazy.
Dissent was biding for as much time as he could because this was his last chance to insert delay, which, of course, is what Trump wants. I think that was, if you think about the court as the Supreme Court of the United States and a rational actor and a decent one, that was a reasonable supposition, and it just turns out they're not that. And Chris, I feel you in terms of the emotion that you're bringing to this right now, and the sort of sense of urgency with which you're underscoring what this means. It's true. There just isn't any way around it. And I feel like for people who haven't been following this, if you want to know why there's a hair on fire reaction to this, if you haven't been following every interstitial,
now listen to this. Listen to this. She's saying hair on fire kind of movement right here. All right. She's trying to cause the panic. This is somebody who's not well or either that wants to stoke up more fear.
Going what this means. It's true. There isn't, I mean, there just isn't any way around it. And I feel like for people who haven't been following this, if you want to know why there's a hair on fire reaction to this, if you haven't been following every interstitial, incremental bit of progress here, the important question here is not whether the Supreme Court is going to decide that Donald Trump and all presidents are immune from prosecution for crimes they committed while they were president. I mean, it would be fully insane for them to actually side with Trump here, right? Remember this.
Now, also, again, Rachel's getting exposed here. All right, I want to pull that up here, right? She is being exposed here as somebody who wants to cause more fear and panic amongst the vote blue no matter who crowd. Because, oh no, where's she leading this to? Well, as we continue to play on this video, I'll give you a spoiler alert. Trump, dictator for life, president for life. Really? Now, the thing is, I'm not afraid of this situation because it sounds absolutely ridiculous at this point. You're speculating here. You have no proof. No proof at all. You're projecting a fear of an idea that Trump's going to be a dictator. By the way, look, any president, any politician could be a dictator, okay? We've had our fair share of mini dictators in this country. No, probably not the presidential level, possibly. But we've had them at the local level, state level, where we've had mayors or senators or House representatives stay in power for what, 10 years, 20 years? That's for a very long time. No one talks about that. Here in Chicago, we perfected feudalism, where seats of power are either handed down to family members, dynastic families. I mean, that's just how it is. I don't want to live in a world of fear, because what it does, it causes people to act irrational. It causes people to act foolish. It causes people to do things that they should not do. And by saying that Trump is going to be this dictator for life, what you are doing is you are setting a message that's okay for the vote blue no matter who people to intensify their pushes and their attacks against people who are independents or third-party voters or people who choose not to vote at all, because now they got this little ammunition rolling in their hands saying, oh my goodness gracious, we got to stop Trump because he'll be a dictator for life. I remember when corporate media was saying that, Tulsi Gabbard was going to run as a third-party candidate or become a Republican candidate for 2020. I remember that. I remember how corporate media kept on smearing Bernie Sanders supporters in 2016 and 2020, saying that they were straight, white, racist males. By the way, once again, congratulations. If you were a black voter, Latino voter, a woman voter, no matter what kind of shade of the rainbow you were or how you identified as, congratulations. During the 2016 and 2020 Democratic primaries, corporate media said that you were a straight white male. It's projection. It's fear. Madness and insanity here. And this is somebody who has a large video platform, a social media platform, in which she informs her audience about the news. Is she properly informing her audience? No. You're causing fear and panic. And with all these attempts of trying to remove Trump from the ballot, listen to me very carefully here, corporate media. Donald Trump does have the right to push back and defend himself. I don't like Trump, and I'm not going to vote Trump. All right? I'm not a Republican voter. I'm sure as hell not a Democratic voter. But I will say this, he is due his fair hearing. And the reason why I say this is because I've interviewed Libertarian candidates, Green Party candidates who've been kicked off the ballot, who've been denied the ability to run their campaign effectively in whatever state they are running in. Again, who is being the roadblock to that? Democratic and Republican politicians.
This is the case where Trump's lawyer was asked by Judge Florence Pan in the appeals court, are you telling me that this guy that a president could order the assassination of his political rivals and there could be no prosecution for that? That would be okay. We'd have to let that go. Not only for the duration of his presidency, but for the duration of his life. That would be okay. And Trump's lawyers are basically like, yeah. So the idea that they're going to side with him on immunity is unthinkable and also beside the point. The conclusion that we can arrive at now based on what they have done without having to wait for the ruling is that they are ensuring that Trump will not face trial. And when they inevitably rule that presidents aren't immune from prosecution after they leave office, what that will tell Donald Trump, if by then he is president, is that he can never leave the office of the presidency.
Right.
And if he is voted out.
I'm sorry. Hold on. He's running for a second term. So legally he cannot stay in power after his second term. It's done. It's over. You only can serve as president for 2 terms. It's over. It's done. He can't run again.
Out in 2028. He cannot leave office.
Now, again, she says if he's voted out in 2028, he can't run again in 2028. He can't do that. Let's play that again one more time. This is how you know corporate media, its job is to cause people to panic and be afraid.
Without having to wait for the ruling, is that they are ensuring that Trump will not face trial. And when they inevitably rule that presidents aren't immune from prosecution after they leave office, what that will tell Donald Trump, if by then he is president, is that he can never leave the office of the presidency.
Right.
And if he is voted out in 2028, he cannot leave office, and he is willing to he is welcome to commit any crimes he wants to, as long as he is still president, in order to ignore the result of that election and stay in power for life, because otherwise he is going to go to prison when he gets out.
I hope all of you heard that. Conservatives, Trumpers, please don't lump Rachel Maddow in with us, because what she said was factually incorrect. First of all, number one, let's say Trump wins the 2024 election cycle. Okay, let's say all these legal troubles, boom, they're gone. And let's just say he wins the Republican primary. Boom, he's in the general election. Boom, he wins. He serves his 4 years. 2028, it's over. Trump presidency done, because he only could serve 2 terms. The only time you might ever see the name Trump on the ballot again is if one of his kids decides to run. Okay? That's how it's done here, folks. That's what's going to happen. That's it. Once Trump is done, what she has done here is project fear. What she has done here is put into everyone's mindset that, oh, Trump's not going to leave office. He's not going to do this. He's not going to do that. Well, as president, guess what? You do have certain privileges, okay? He's a politician. I don't like it either. These politicians are all jagoffs to me in my book. I'm not part of the 2-party system. But the one thing I'm not going to do on this program is project fear. Oh, my goodness, the Democrats are going to stay in power forever. They're going to do this. Oh, my goodness, the Republicans are going to stay in power forever. They're going to do that. Well, guess what? The Democratic and Republican politicians have a game. The system's rigged in their favor, and they're going to play it however which way they want it, okay? Now, does the establishment want Donald Trump back in office? No, probably not. Is Trump the savior of America? No. Don't ever assume any of these politicians are the knight on the hill. But what Rachel Maddow is saying here to you, my audience, and to everyone out there on social media, she's trying to say that Trump is going to, in theory, in her mind, become a great dictator. How? What evidence? What proof do you have that he's going to do a coup? That he's going to become Caesar for life? Well, there are laws against that. Now, Trump did lose the 2020 election cycle, fine. But he's running again in 2024. If and when he wins it, if that happens, he serves his 4 years and then he's done. Now, what a lot of these liberals can't stomach is the fact that they were wrong in 2016 and that they put all their hopes in 2020. And now they're realizing that old man Biden just doesn't have that dog in him anymore to face off against Trump. And Trump is winning in key election states, and that the uncommitted voters made their voices heard. And while Democrats are going to be scoffing and ignoring it, it is abundantly clear that voters want something else, that voters want some real change. And that right now, the Democrats have lost their coalition, and corporate media is trying to do everything it can to maintain the coalition. And that is through fear, which is, again, why I got to pull up this video one more time, where you're hearing a straight out lie. Or either that someone trying to create a talking point. Because you're going to see this by a lot of liberals on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram or on any of these other YouTube channels about how Trump is going to maintain power. Once again, I apologize to all of you for playing this video again, but you have to see just how pathetic MSNBC truly has become.
When they inevitably rule that presidents aren't immune from prosecution after they leave office, what that will tell Donald Trump, if by then he is president, is that he can never leave the office of the presidency.
Right.
And if he is voted out in 2028, he cannot leave office, and he is willing to he is welcome to commit any crimes he wants to, as long as he is still president, in order to ignore the result of that election and stay in power for life, because otherwise he is going to go to prison when he gets out. That is the way this is.
It's called projection. It's called fear. Now, one other thing here too. You know that fancy thing called the First Amendment? You know, that's going to be kind of important. Just let you know just how we need to start dismissing everything from MSNBC to CNN, all these corporate media outlets, because I'm just going to play a video here. Rachel Maddow's guest, Barbara McQuaid, explaining how America is vulnerable to misinformation because of our First Amendment and our ability to publicly discuss censorship. They call it censorship that they are trying to silence the conservative voices. Anytime someone tries to do that tries to limit free speech, people claim censorship. The thought police are upset that you complain about Biden taking us back to 1984. Censorship. And yet this is being platformed on Rachel Maddow's show. Now, I believe that everyone does have a voice. I am a free speech absolutist. I believe in that. But this right here, if this doesn't cause any more, after those two videos I played of that meltdown that Maddow was having, if this doesn't raise an eyebrow of fear and concern, I don't know what does. And again, conservatives and Trumpers, please, I'm just asking nicely, don't lump leftists with Rachel Maddow, okay? She does not speak for me. I'm politically homeless right now. I'm politically homeless. I don't want to be associated with those people from MSNBC. And before anyone types in the comment section below, what do you mean those people? I mean those people from MSNBC. And I say that as kindly and as politely as possible. Seriously.
Actually, Rachel, I think we're more susceptible to it than other countries. And that's because some of our greatest strengths can also be our Achilles heel. So, for example, our deep commitment to free speech in our First Amendment. It is a cherished right. It is an important right in democracy, and nobody wants to get rid of it. But it makes us vulnerable to claims that anything we try to do to regulate speech is censorship. Of course, the Supreme Court has held that all fundamental rights, even the right to free speech, can be limited as long as there is a compelling governmental interest. And
I hope you heard that. Let's let us know one more time. I'm sorry. Like I said, when I said the censorship is going to get real, I mean it, and I'm so sorry.
Important right in democracy, and nobody wants to get rid of it. But it makes us vulnerable to claims that anything we try to do to regulate speech is censorship. Of course,
regulating speech is censorship. Say it with me, folks, with the people in the back. What could possibly go wrong?
The Supreme Court has held that all fundamental rights, even the right to free speech, can be limited as long as there is a compelling governmental interest and the restriction is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. But I think anytime someone tries to do anything that might limit free speech, people claim censorship. I mean, just look at the case the Supreme Court heard today about efforts by the states of Florida and Texas to prevent social media companies from moderating content online. And they call it censorship, that they are trying to silence conservative voices. Of course, social media companies are private actors who are not bound by the First Amendment. And so we need to have a conversation and common sense solutions to these things.
Oh, don't you love it? Common sense solutions for censorship? Or is that restricting speech? Now, look, there's probably a myriad of things I disagree with as conservatives or libertarians or Trump supporters. But guess what? There's probably things I disagree with as Greens or socialists or other progressives. And yes, there are things I disagree with liberals too. But surprise, surprise, in a little Uno reverse card, there might be some things I do agree with. All right. I want to talk to people, but I want to hear people's perspectives. I don't want to live in a little world where it's nothing but a bubble, a safe space. If you step outside your line, oh no, it's the danger. Oh no, you got to be afraid. I'm against censorship in any form it comes in. Sorry, I apologize for that stutter. I'm against it. I stand against it. But there is a growing movement within the powers that be that want to restrict all of us, and I say all of us, and how we think and how we view the news. When I say keep your heads on a swivel, I mean it.
Instead, we throw out terms like censorship, we call each other names, we use labels, and we all retreat to our opposite sides. We need to be pragmatic and come up with real solutions. But it is, I think, one of the things that makes America particularly vulnerable to disinformation.
The First Amendment. First Amendment's a danger. You can't have free speech, folks. It'll ruin you. You can't have free speech because how dare you question the system? You can't have free speech because how dare you? How simply dare you? How simply dare you actually think for yourself? What we witnessed there in those 3 videos is the absolute pathetic decline of corporate media. MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, yes, even Fox News, and all the other associate corporate media establishment outlets realize that they're losing the game. And the only way they have control is to cause people to be afraid. Don't be afraid. Be an example for others to inspire to be, all right? Be an example for others to follow. This right here, this whole landscape that we have here is an absolute disgrace to what was once journalism. The whole idea of the media, of news, is to hold those in power accountable, not to make people afraid. Now, I don't know how this 2024 election cycle will play out. Maybe Biden stays in. Oh, maybe Biden gets kicked out of the DNC convention in Chicago. Who knows? Maybe Trump wins his legal issues. Maybe he doesn't. No matter who wins the presidency, at the end of the day, the world will still keep going on. But you cannot, on a large platform, start speculating fear to people who have been trained for a very long time to be afraid. We must take the hits as we get them. This election is understandably out of my control, and it's out of your control. There's only one thing I know, and I know I've said this before, and maybe people are tired of me saying this, but there's only one thing I can do on election night. First of all, cast my vote. That's not going to be for Trump or Biden. It's not for Democrats or Republicans. I'm going to be voting independent third party. I've made that very clear. I've been consistent about that, and I'll keep on doing that for as long as I can, voting independent third party. And then I'm going to make myself a nice ribeye steak on election night. These are things that I can control. These are things that I can do. But I'm not going to be afraid. Stop living in fear. No matter what happens, we are still here. We are still standing. Don't be afraid and break away from corporate media. It's a poison.